The meeting hall on Space Station. Meridian 7 was massive. Delegates from hundreds of worlds sat in their assigned sections watching the center platform. With great interest, the air smelled of 1,000 different atmospheres, filtered and mixed to keep everyone alive. Quan stood near the human section, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Next to him, Unipark checked her data pad one more time before putting it away. There. Late, Una whispered, trying to make an entrance. They nodded slightly. He had read the reports about the scan empire. They were a powerful species that controlled 40 star systems. Every single member of their race had implants in their brains. These implants connected them to each other and a vast computer networks. They could think faster than any biological brain. They could share thoughts instantly across light years of space. They never forgot anything. The massive doors at the far end of the hall suddenly opened. The room fell silent. Commander Veller walked through the doors, followed by 20 scaring soldiers. They were tall, reptilian creatures with dark green scales and cold yellow eyes. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, like dancers who had practiced together for years. But this was not practice. Their implants made them move as one. Consciousness spread across many bodies. Bether stopped at the center platform. He looked around the room with clear contempt. When his eyes passed over the human section, his mouth curved into something like a smile. Greetings, members of the Galactic Council, Veller said. His voice was smooth and confident. The Scaran Empire thanks you for this invitation. We come to share our wisdom with the lesser species of this galaxy. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The insult was obvious, but no one spoke. We have observed many of you for decades, Feller continued. We have watched your wars, your inefficient governments, your slow technological progress. Today we wish to demonstrate why the screen way is superior, why biological limitations must be overcome through technology. Holographic display appeared above the platform. It showed a complex three-dimensional map with hundreds of moving pieces. This is a simple negotiation scenario, Veller explained. Two trading partners must allocate resources across multiple colonies while managing political tensions, economic fluctuations, and potential conflicts. Most species require weeks to find a solution. The Scaran Empire solved such problems in seconds. They watched the display carefully. It was not simple at all. The scenario had layers within layers. Every decision affected dozens of other factors. It was designed to be nearly impossible for unenhanced minds. We invite any species to challenge us, Veller said. Show the Council your best negotiators. Let us see if biology alone can compete with perfection. The room remained silent. Most delegates knew better than to accept such an obvious trap. They stepped forward. The humans accept your challenge. The room filled with surprised murmurs. Una moved to stand beside Day, her face calm and professional. Veller's smile widened. How brave, how foolish. Humans are known for their stubbornness, but this is simply suicide for your reputation. Perhaps De said quietly. Shall we begin? The holographic display split into two sides. One side appeared in front of Thor, the other in front of the human delegates. The scenario began. Immediately, Veller's side of the display erupted with activity. His implants processed thousands of calculations per second, resource allocations optimized. Themselves, trade routes reformed into perfect efficiency, political tensions dissolved as he found exactly the right compromises. His soldiers stood perfectly still, but they knew they were all connected, all thinking together, all contributing processing power to solve the puzzle. On the human side, Day and Una worked together the old way. They talked through options, they debated strategies, they made mistakes and corrected them. They relied on intuition and experience rather than instant calculation. It was no contest. Within 4 minutes, Veller had solved the entire scenario. Every colony thrived, every political faction was satisfied, every economic indicator pointed to prosperity. The solution was mathematically perfect. The human side was still working, barely. Halfway through the problem, we are finished, Belther announced. Perhaps the humans need more time, several weeks. Perhaps. Day looked at his display then. At Una, she shook her head slightly. They both knew they could not win. We concede, Day said simply. Your solution is superior. The room filled with conversation. Some delegates seemed relieved, others looked disappointed. The screen had proven their point completely. Veller walked over to the human section. He looked down at Day. With those cold yellow eyes, you see. Now, yes, biological minds are too slow, too limited, too prone to error. The screen and empire offers you a choice. Accept our protection, acknowledge our superiority, let us guide humanity toward a better future, and if we refuse, Una asked, her voice steady, despite the implicit threat, then you will be left behind, Velter said. Galaxy is moving forward. Those who cling to their primitive biology will find themselves irrelevant, conquered, extinct. He paused, but I do not think humans are that foolish. You are practical creatures. You will make the logical choice. Day met the commander's gaze without flinching. We will need time to consider your offer, of course. Veller said, take all the time you need. We are patient. He gestured to his soldiers, and they all turned in perfect unison to leave. We will return in 1 month for your answer. Choose wisely. Humans, the Scairn delegation left the hall with the same synchronized precision they had entered with. As the doors closed behind them, the room erupted into conversation. Dozens of delegates approached the human section, some offering sympathy, others offering advice. Day ignored them all. He looked at Una, and something passed between them, a look that said they were not defeated, a look that said they had learned something important today. They're predictable, Una whispered so quietly that no one else could hear. Every move calculated to be optimal. No variation, no creativity, perfectly predictable. They agreed. He allowed himself the smallest smile. That might be a weakness, might be, Una said, if we're clever enough to exploit it. They gathered their materials and prepared to return to Earth. They had a lot of work to do, and only 1 month to do it. Scairn thought they had one today. They thought they had proven their superiority beyond any doubt. But when and Unipark knew something the Scairn did not. Sometimes the greatest victories come from learning how your enemy thinks, and today they had learned exactly that. The question was whether they could use that knowledge in time. The Scairn Empire was powerful, technologically advanced, and absolutely confident in their supremacy. Overconfidence, Day thought, might be their real weakness. As they walked through the corridors of Meridian 7 back to their ship, Day was already forming plans, dangerous plans. Plans that would require human creativity, human unpredictability, and human courage, the Scairn believed. Their implants made them unbeatable. Soon they would learn otherwise. The military base on Earth's surface looked ordinary from the sky, gray. Buildings arranged in neat rows. Training fields where soldiers ran. Through exercises, hangars holding fighter craft and transport vehicles. Everything was standard, exactly what any galactic observer would expect from a species that relied on traditional military technology. Inside the command center, Quan Day watched the approaching Scaring shuttle on the main screen. 3 weeks had passed since the demonstration at Meridian 7. The Galactic Council had strongly suggested that Earth allow the Scaring to inspect human military capabilities. It was phrased as a diplomatic courtesy, but everyone understood the real message. The Council wanted Earth to understand how outmatched they were. "They'll be landing in 5 minutes," Tahan said from his station. He was younger than Day, with quick hands that never stopped moving across his keyboard. He was Earth's best cyber warfare specialist, though few people outside military intelligence knew his name. "Everyone remembers the plan?" Yuna asked. She stood near the window, watching the shuttle descend through the clouds. "Show them exactly what they expect to see," said Mongu. The old soldier had scars on his face and hands from wars that predated contact with aliens. He had fought in conflicts where victory came from outsmarting the enemy, not outgunning them. "Let them think they know everything." Renche entered the command center, carrying a data pad. She was a civilian consultant, a psychologist who specialized in alien behavior patterns. Their delegation includes Commander Velther and 6 officers, all connected through their implant network. They'll be scanning everything constantly, recording data, analyzing our capabilities. "Good," Day said. "Let them scan, let them record, let them feel confident." The shuttle landed smoothly on the designated pad. The side door opened and Commander Velther emerged, followed by his officers. They walked toward the welcome committee with that same unsettling synchronization. Every step perfectly timed, every head turning at the exact same angle. Day met them at the entrance to the main building. "Commander Veller, welcome to Firebase Echo," Director Quan Veller replied. His yellow eyes swept across the facility, and Day knew the screens. Implants were already working, scanning buildings, analyzing security, cataloging weapons. "I appreciate your cooperation." Many species refuse to be honest about their military limitations. "I find your transparency refreshing." "We have nothing to hide," Day said, which was technically true. Everything the Scairn would see today was real. It just was not everything Earth had. The tour began in the armory. Veller and his officers examined racks of rifles, ammunition, and body armor. One of the Scairn officers picked up a rifle and laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "Projectile weapons," the officer said. "Chemical propellant launching metal slugs, how primitive. Our personal energy weapons can vaporize targets from 3 times the range with perfect accuracy." "These rifles work," Yuna said calmly. "They're reliable, easy to manufacture. Soldiers can maintain them in field conditions because your soldiers cannot interface with advanced technology Another scaring officer observed, they must rely on simple machines they can understand. Day said nothing, he simply led them to the next section. In the training yard, human soldiers ran through combat exercises. They moved in squads, communicating through radio and hand signals. Some took cover behind barriers, others provided covering fire. It was basic infantry tactics, unchanged for centuries. Balor watched for several minutes, his expression a mixture of pity and contempt. Inefficient. He finally said, "Your soldiers must practice physical movements repeatedly because they cannot simply upload combat programming. They make mistakes, they tire, they require years of training to achieve what a scared soldier knows instantly." "True," my young Su agreed. He stood next to Thor, his weathered face showing nothing. "Our soldiers are slow learners compared to yours." What Veller did not see was Mayang Su watching the scaring officers carefully, noting how they all reacted to the same stimuli at the same time, how they never disagreed with each other, how they evaluated threats according to perfect calculations rather than gut instinct. Predictable, Mongu thought, perfectly mathematically predictable. The tour continued through the command center where analog backup systems sat alongside digital networks, through the medical bay where doctors used traditional surgery alongside advanced healing technology, through the hangars where pilots manually controlled their craft rather than letting AI do the flying. At every stop the Scairn found something to mock. The humans were too slow, too inefficient, too dependent on outdated methods. Their technology was generations behind the scaring standard. Tai Hyan stayed close to the Scairn delegation, his own scanner hidden in his jacket pocket, while the aliens scanned human systems. He scanned them right back. He noted the frequencies their implants used to communicate, the protocols they followed, the way they shared data across their network. In the officer's mess hall, Veller accepted a cup of water but did not drink it. "I have seen enough," he announced. "Your military is exactly as we predicted. Adequate for basic planetary defense, but no match for a serious galactic power." "Is that your assessment?" they asked. "It is fact, not assessment," Feller corrected. "Our implants have analyzed every aspect of your capabilities. We have projected combat outcomes across 3,000 scenarios. In every single scenario, the Scairn Empire achieves total victory within 72 hours. "That's very thorough," Ren Choi said. She had been quiet during most of the tour, but now she spoke up. "Your implants must process information incredibly fast, faster than your biological mind can comprehend," one of the Scairn officers said. "We think at the speed of light, you think at the speed of chemical reactions in your brain. That must make everything very predictable for you," Ren continued. "You can calculate the optimal solution to any problem instantly." "Precisely," Veller said, not recognizing the trap in her words. "Optimal solutions are always obvious to enhanced minds. Only limited biological intelligence struggles with decisions." Ren made a note on her data pad. She had just confirmed her theory. The Scairn did not just prefer optimal solutions, they were psychologically dependent on them. Their implants had trained them to always seek the mathematically perfect answer. They had forgotten how to deal with chaos, with uncertainty, with problems that had no optimal solution. As the tour concluded, Veller stood in the main courtyard and addressed the assembled humans. The Scaran Empire's offer remains open. Accept our protection, acknowledge our superiority, integrate your species into our network, and we will raise you from your primitive state. And if we choose independence, they asked, though he knew the answer, then you choose extinction, Balor said. Simply, the galaxy has no place for species that refuse to evolve. Your weapons are outdated, your tactics are predictable, your soldiers are slow and limited. If we chose to conquer Earth tomorrow, your resistance would last 3 days at most. The Idar Scaring delegation departed, their shuttle rising into the afternoon sky as it disappeared into the clouds. The human officers gathered in the command center. They scanned everything. Tahun confirmed, reviewing his data. Copied our database structures, recorded our defensive positions, analyzed our weapon specifications. Did they scan the encrypted files? They asked. They tried. Their implants dismissed the files as irrelevant because they appeared to be nothing but random maintenance logs and equipment inventories. Yuna smiled. Perfect. They see what they expect to see. Their psychology is exactly as I predicted, Ren said. They're completely dependent on their implants. Calculations. They've lost the ability to think creatively, to imagine solutions that aren't mathematically optimal. They're trapped by their own technology. Mongu pulled up a holographic display. Every one of their soldiers moved identically, same threat assessment, same tactical evaluation, same everything. If we can predict what their implants calculate as optimal, we can predict exactly what they'll do. They think we're helpless, Yuna said. They think they've seen everything we have, then we'll show them something they haven't seen, Day replied. Something their implants can't calculate, something that doesn't have an optimal solution. Tahun was already working at his terminal, analyzing the data he had gathered on the Scaring network protocols. Give me 2 weeks. I can write code that won't defeat their implants but will confuse them. Nothing sophisticated, just crude interference that their advanced defenses will ignore as beneath. Notice, they're so confident in their superiority. Ren observed that confidence is a weakness. They won't consider that we might be capable of surprising them. The team worked late into the night preparing plans that would never appear in any official military database, plans that relied on human unpredictability, human creativity, and human stubbornness. The Scaran had scanned Firebase Echo and found exactly what they expected: an outdated military force clinging to primitive technology, slow soldiers who could not compete with enhanced reflexes, simple weapons that posed no threat to advanced armor. They had not found the real weapons, the human mind capable of irrational decisions that made perfect sense, human spirit refusing to surrender even when logic demanded it. The colony world of New Jeju had been peaceful for 20 years. Farmers grew crops in the red soil, miners extracted valuable minerals from the mountains, families lived in small towns connected by roads that wound through valleys. It was a quiet place on the edge of human space, far from Earth and far from trouble. That peace ended at dawn when the Scaran warships appeared in orbit. Jin Park was drinking coffee when the emergency siren started. He put down his cup carefully, grabbed his rifle from the wall, and ran outside. Other soldiers were already gathering in the town square. They were not professional military, just local defense volunteers, farmers and miners, who had done basic training years ago. "Everyone knows the plan," Jin shouted. Over the noise of the sirens, "Get the civilians to the shelters, combat teams. To your positions, move above them." Sky burned, scaring dropships fell through the atmosphere like deadly rain. They landed in perfect formations around the colony's 3 main settlements. Doors opened and scared soldiers poured out, their movements synchronized and efficient. Jin led his squad to the defensive positions overlooking the northern approach. They had built simple barriers and trenches, according to standard military doctrine. The Scairn would have to cross 300 m of open ground to reach the town. "Here they come," someone whispered. The Scairn advanced in perfect formation. Their implants calculated the optimal approach, identifying the best routes, the strongest defensive positions, the most likely ambush points. They moved to counter every standard defensive tactic. Jin's squad opened fire. Their bullets struck screen armor and several aliens fell, but the rest adapted instantly. There worked consciousness sharing damage reports and adjusting tactics. They found cover, returned fire with energy weapons, and continued advancing. Within 20 minutes, the human defensive line broke. Jin ordered his squad to fall back to the secondary position. They ran through the streets and the screen followed their implants, predicting every retreat path, every potential rally point. By noon, New Jeddah had fallen. The pattern repeated across all 3 settlements. The Scairn had studied human defensive tactics for years. Their implants knew every standard procedure, every common strategy. The colonists fought bravely, but bravery alone could not overcome perfect tactical execution. 2 more colonies fell the next day, then 3 more. The Scairn invasion was proceeding exactly according to their calculations, but on the 7th colony something changed. The world was called Dew Station, a mining colony built into asteroid clusters. Jin Park had been reassigned there after evacuating from New Jew. He brought with him a data file that had been transmitted from Earth, marked with the highest priority. Hana Lee, the colony's chief medical officer, found Jin studying a map in the command center. "Are we abandoning the standard defensive positions?" she asked, looking at his notes. "Yes," Jin said, "according to this plan from Earth Command, we're going to defend places that make no strategic sense. That's suicide," one of the other officers protested. "Maybe," Jin agreed, "but standard tactics haven't worked. The Scairn predict everything we do. Their implants calculate optimal solutions, so they know exactly where we'll defend and how we'll fight, so we fight wrong on purpose." Hunter asked. "Exactly, we do things that make no tactical sense, things their implants won't predict, because no rational commander would choose them." When the screen ships arrived at Dew Station, their scan showed the colony's defensive positions. The humans had fortified the main habitat domes, the power generators, and the command center, all logical, high-value targets. The Scairn forces landed and immediately moved to capture the power generators. Their implants identified this as the optimal first objective. Cut the power and the colony's defenses would weaken significantly. But when they reached the generator complex, they found it undefended, empty. The generators were running, but no soldiers protected them. The Scairn hesitated for exactly 0.3 seconds while their implants recalculated. Perhaps the humans had retreated to the habitat. Domes, that would be the second most logical position. The main screen force advanced toward the domes again. They found minimal resistance, a few scattered defenders who retreated quickly. Error, Commander Veller said. From his flagship in orbit, his implants were processing battle data from thousands of soldiers on the ground. Human defensive patterns do not match predicted models. Recalculate, Thewert. Screen consciousness recalculated and recalculated again. The humans were not defending high-value targets. They were not following any standard tactical doctrine. They were scattered in positions that appeared strategically worthless. Then the ambushes began. Scairn squad entered a storage warehouse that their implants had marked as tactically insignificant. The building had no strategic value, no defensive advantages, no reason for humans to be there. That's exactly why Jin Park had hidden 30 soldiers inside. The screen were caught completely by surprise. Their implants had not predicted an ambush in a worthless location. By the time Thewert consciousness shared the new data, half the squad was down. Similar ambushes erupted across the colony. Humans attacked from positions that made no sense. They retreated from strong defensive points and fought desperately for locations with no apparent value. They made decisions that were tactically wrong but worked anyway. Hana Lee led a combat medic team that kept moving between positions, never staying anywhere long enough for the Scairn to predict their location. When Scaring forces finally cornered them in what appeared to be a trap, Hana's team didn't retreat. Instead, they charged forward right through the Scaring formation, firing wildly. The Scaring implants calculated a 0.02% chance that the humans would choose such a suicidal tactic, so they had not prepared for it. The chaos spread. The Scairn York consciousness began receiving contradictory tactical data. Unit Alpha reported humans defending location A. Unit Beta reported the same. Humans attacking location B. Unit Gamma reported humans retreating from both locations toward location, so the data made no sense. Aboard his flagship, Veller watched the battle with growing frustration. His implants showed him thousands of data points, but they refused to form a coherent pattern. The humans were not following any logical strategy. They were fighting wrong, making mistakes, choosing suboptimal tactics, and somehow it was working. All units consolidate positions. Belor ordered, follow standard assault protocols. The humans cannot maintain this chaos indefinitely, but the Scairn standard assault protocols were exactly what Jin Park wanted them to follow. Every Scairn soldier received the same orders through their implants. They all moved to the same consolidated positions. They all followed the same optimal approach, which made them predictable again. Jin's forces had set up their real defenses exactly where the Scairn would gather, not where logic said they should defend, but where the Scaring's is perfect. Tactics would inevitably lead them. Battle turned into a grinding stalemate. The Scairn had superior weapons and armor, but they could not predict what the humans would do next. Every time, their implants calculated the optimal counter strategy. The humans would do something different, something wrong, something that shouldn't work but did. After 6 hours of fighting, Veller made a decision that shocked his fellow Commanders, he ordered a retreat. The colony is not worth these casualties. He explained, we will return with more forces and better data, but the damage was done. The Scarian Empire had lost a battle against primitive humans. Word spread quickly through the Galactic Council. The species that relied on optimal solutions had been defeated by suboptimal chaos. As the Scarian ships left orbit, Jin Park sat on a broken wall and accepted a medical pack from Han Li. His arm was burned from an energy weapon, but he was smiling. We didn't win, Hana pointed out. They'll be back. We survived, Jin replied, and we learned something important. Their implants make them strong but also predictable. They always choose the optimal solution, which means they're always trapped by optimal thinking. Can we keep fighting like this, making mistakes on purpose? We don't have to make mistakes, Jin said. We just have to be unpredictable, do things they don't expect, change our tactics every battle. Never let them find a pattern. In orbit, Commander Veller was having similar thoughts, though his conclusions were different. His implants were already analyzing the battle data, searching for patterns in the human chaos. Surely there was a mathematical model that could predict unpredictability. Surely enhanced minds could overcome simple biological confusion. He did not yet understand that he was trying to solve a problem that had no solution, that sometimes the best strategy was to have no strategy at all, that human unpredictability was not a weakness to be overcome but a strength that could not be calculated. The Scarian Empire prepared to send more ships, more soldiers, more processing power to solve the human problem. They remained confident that superior technology would eventually prevail. They were about to learn just how wrong confidence could be. On Dew Station, Jin Park received new orders from Earth. The message was simple: your tactics worked. All colonies are adopting the chaos protocols. Make them fear our unpredictability. Jin looked at Hana and grinned. This is going to be a strange war. The war had been going for 3 months, and Commander Veller was beginning to understand fear. Not the simple biological fear that his implants had long ago edited from his neural patterns, but something deeper. The fear of not knowing, the fear of unpredictability. His flagship hung in orbit above the colony world of Busausen. Hold below, his forces were engaged in their 17th battle against human defenders. The battle should have been over in hours. It had been raging for 4 days. Status report, Veller commanded. Unit Delta reports 34% casualties while securing Sector 7. An officer replied. All screen officers spoke in the same flat tone, their individuality subsumed by thwarted consciousness. Unit Echo has captured the water treatment facility, but found it was not defended. Unit Beta is pursuing human forces that appeared to be retreating, but then attacked from the rear. Unit Gamma. Enough, Veller interrupted. The data was contradictory, confusing. Wrong. His implants tried to find patterns and failed repeatedly. The humans were not following any consistent strategy. Some units fought fiercely for worthless positions, others abandoned critical infrastructure without a fight. Some attacked, some retreated, some did both simultaneously. It made no sense. It should not work, but the humans were still fighting, still resisting, and the Scarian casualty count kept rising. In Earth's orbital command station, Wan Day Watch the same battle on different screens. Each display showed a different colony, a different fight. The Scairn had committed huge forces to break human resistance. They were winning ground, destroying defenses, capturing objectives, but they were not achieving victory. How long can we maintain this? Yuna asked. She looked exhausted. They all did, as long as necessary. They replied, every day we hold is another day we learn how their implants work. Another day, Tae Hyen gets closer to his solution. In a sealed laboratory on the dark side of Earth's moon, Tae Hyen had not slept in 30 hours. His eyes burned, his hands shook from too much coffee, but he was close, so close. The Scaring implant network used quantum encrypted communication protocols that should have been unbreakable. Tae Hyen was not trying to break them. Instead, he was creating something much simpler, a virus that did not hack their system, but simply made it slower. Its primitive code, he muttered to himself, typing rapidly, so primitive. Their advanced defenses won't even notice it as a threat, just a tiny delay, milliseconds, nothing significant, but in warfare, milliseconds mattered. When you had 1,000 soldiers all work together, all receiving data simultaneously, all moving with perfect coordination, even tiny delays would cascade into larger problems. Tae Hyen ran another simulation. The virus worked, but he needed a way to deploy it. The Scairn network was closed, impossible to penetrate from outside. He needed something already inside their defenses, something they would not suspect. He found his answer in the wreckage of a Scaring dropship that had crashed on Nuju. Salvage teams had recovered pieces of their communication equipment. The equipment was damaged, but Tae Hyen only needed it to broadcast one signal. One tiny, primitive, easily dismissed signal, ready for field testing. He reported today, above Busausen Hold, the space battle was going poorly for Earth's fleet. Commander Bo Min watched her tactical display and knew she was outmatched. The Scairn fleet had better weapons, faster ships, and perfect coordination. Her own ships were a mixture of military vessels and converted civilian craft. They should have been destroyed within minutes. They survived through sheer unpredictability. Bowman ordered attacks that made no tactical sense. She sent ships on courses that appeared suicidal. She retreated when she should press the advantage and attacked when she should run. The Screen fleet adapted to each move, but adaptation took time, and time was all Bowman needed. Ma'am, Earth Command is transmitting something, her communication officer reported. They want us to deploy it during the next engagement. Bowman read the orders and smiled. It was time to see if Tae Hyen's mad idea would work. The Scairn fleet pressed their attack, confident in their numerical superiority. Their implants calculated attack vectors, predicted human responses, optimized firing solutions. Everything worked perfectly, as it always did. Then Tae Hyen's virus activated. It was not a sophisticated attack. It was crude, simple code that any modern defense system would normally catch and destroy, but the Screen defenses were designed to stop advanced threats. They dismissed the primitive signal as irrelevant noise beneath their notice. The virus did not delete data or crash systems. It just introduced tiny delays in the Screen network communication. A millisecond here, 3 milliseconds there, 5 milliseconds in another node. Alone, each delay was meaningless, but the Scaring fleet operated as a single coordinated entity. Ship Alpha turned left, expecting Ship Beta to be in position to cover, but Ship Beta's course adjustment was delayed by 4 milliseconds. It was not in position. Ship Alpha's flank was exposed. Bowman saw the tiny gap in their formation and struck immediately. Her ships punched through the opening before the screen could adjust. Across the fleet, similar problems cascaded. The perfect synchronization fell apart. Ships collided because turn commands arrived slightly out of sync. Weapons fired at coordinates that were outdated by milliseconds, missing their targets. Thwart consciousness that was the Scaren's greatest strength became a liability as delays spread through the system. Impossible, Veller said, watching his formation crumble. Scan for electronic warfare. Find the source. His officers scanned but found nothing. The virus was too primitive to register as a threat. It was just noise, glitches, random interference, nothing that should cause such catastrophic coordination failures. The Scaran fleet retreated in chaos. For the first time in their empire's history, they had been driven back not by superior force but by their own technology failing them. On the ground, Myungu was teaching the latest batch of soldiers his new doctrine: forget everything you learned about proper tactics, he told them. The screen calculate optimal moves. They expect us to do the same, so we do the opposite. Young soldier raised her hand. Sir, if we fight wrong, won't we lose? Wrong tactics are still tactics, Mongsu explained. A feint that looks like a mistake is still a feint. A retreat that appears panic can still lead the enemy into a trap. The difference is the Screen's implants dismiss our moves as errors rather than strategy. He pulled up recordings from recent battles. Watch this engagement. Our forces abandoned a defensive position that should have been held. The Scaring calculated we made a mistake, so they pursued aggressively. They walked right into an ambush in a location their implants considered tactically worthless. The soldiers watched as they recording showed Scaring forces falling into the trap, their perfect coordination useless against an attack they had not predicted. Every Scaring soldier receives the same tactical data. Mongo continued. They all see the same optimal solution, which means they all make the same decisions. Once you understand how their implants calculate optimal moves, you can predict what they'll do. But sir, another soldier asked, how do we predict their calculations? Mongo smiled. We don't. We just do random things, and eventually they do something predictable in response. Then we're ready for them. In her psychology lab, Ren Choi was having breakthrough after breakthrough. She had been analyzing recordings of Scaring soldiers in combat, studying their behavior patterns, their decision-making processes. They're psychologically dependent on their implants, she explained today during a video conference. After generations of always having the optimal solution provided, they've lost the ability to function without it. When faced with choices their implants cannot process, they cannot make decisions based on intuition or gut feeling. They need the math to tell them what to do. How do we exploit that? Day asked. Give them multiple equally optimal solutions, Ren said. Force their implants to present choices with no clear best option. Their work consciousness will fracture as different nodes choose different solutions. This became the new strategy Earth's forces deliberately created. situations where the scaring had multiple valid tactical choices. Should they attack position A or position B? Both had equal strategic value. Should they defend against threat X or threat Y? Both were equally dangerous. Scare New York consciousness began to argue with itself. Different fleet elements chose different options, breaking their coordination. Soldiers on the ground hesitated, waiting for their implants to decide between equally weighted choices. Humans did not have this problem. When faced with equal choices, they simply picked one and committed. Sometimes they were right, sometimes wrong, but they kept moving forward. Commander Veller realized with growing horror that his empire's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. The implants that made them superior to biological intelligence had also made them dependent, predictable, and vulnerable to anything that could not be optimized. In a desperate meeting with his fleet commanders, all linked through their shared consciousness, Feller addressed the crisis. We must adapt, he said, update our tactical algorithms to account for human irrationality. But this was the trap. The moment they tried to predict unpredictability, the Scaran Armada emerged from faster than light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 6,000 warships, representing every reserve the Empire had held back. Commander Veller stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the displays. His implants processed data from all 6,000 ships simultaneously, creating a perfect tactical picture. This ends today, he announced to Thurkt. Consciousness that connected every Scaran soldier in the fleet. We will break their home world. We will show the galaxy that biological chaos cannot stand against technological perfection. The fleet moved forward in formation so precise they looked like computer graphics rather than physical ships. Every vessel knew its role. Every weapon was already locked on target. Every possible human response had been calculated and countered. It was the perfect assault. It could not fail. On Earth's orbital defense station, alarms shrieked as the massive fleet appeared. On long-range scanners, we stood in the command center looking at the tactical display with unusual calmness for someone facing impossible odds. 6,000 ships, an officer reported, her voice shaking. Sir, we have maybe 300 vessels that can fight. This is exactly what we expected, Dave finished. He touched his communication panel. Commander Bo Min began random deployment pattern across Earth's orbital space. The defense fleet began moving, but not in any formation that made sense. Some ships moved toward the incoming Scaran Armada, others retreated toward the moon, still others spread out randomly across the orbital plane. There was no coordination, no pattern, no apparent strategy. The Scaring implants analyzed the deployment and found nothing that matched any known tactical doctrine. The human fleet appeared to be moving randomly, chaotically, without purpose. They are in disarray, a Scaran officer observed. Their command structure has collapsed. Under the pressure, they are defeated before we even engage. But Veller had learned to be wary of human chaos. Proceed with caution, maintain formation, do not deviate from the optimal approach. The two fleets closed on each other. The Scaring began firing at maximum range, their weapons calculated to hit moving targets with perfect accuracy. But the human ships were not where the calculations predicted they would be. They accelerated randomly, decelerated. Without reason, turned in directions that made no tactical sense. Most shots missed, the few that connected did damage, but the human fleet kept moving, kept being unpredictable. Commander Bo Min sat in her command chair watching her tactical display. With intense focus, she was not commanding the fleet in any traditional sense. Instead, she had given each ship captain complete freedom to act independently. Every human vessel was making its own decision, following its own tactics, with no coordination whatsoever. It was chaos, but it was chaos the Scarine could not predict. Ma'am, the Scarine fleet is dividing, her tactical officer reported. They're splitting into 3 attack groups trying to surround us. Expected, Bowman said. She touched her controls. All ships implement Tahuns. Surprise on my mark. 3 and 2 1. Mark hidden transmitters undamaged. Scarine equipment that had been accidentally left in Earth's orbital debris field suddenly activated. They broadcast Tahan's improved virus across all frequencies, more powerful than the first version, still too primitive for Scarine defenses to recognize as a real threat. The virus flooded into the Scarine network. Delays cascaded through their consciousness. Ship A's tactical data was milliseconds old by the time Ship B received it. Weapon trajectories were calculated on outdated position information. The perfect formation began to fracture, but this time Tae-Hyen had added something extra. The virus did not just delay information, it duplicated it. Every tactical calculation was copied and sent twice, 3 times, 10 times, flooding the Scarine network with redundant data. Thwarked consciousness began to overload. Every Scarine soldier was suddenly receiving multiple versions of the same tactical information, all slightly different because of the transmission delays. Their implants tried to reconcile the contradictions and failed. On the Scarine flagship, Belther watched in horror as his perfect battle plan dissolved into confusion. Purge the network, isolate the contamination, but there was nothing to purge. The virus was not sophisticated enough to be recognized as an attack. It was just noise interference glitches, and it was everywhere below on Earth's surface. Every military installation was on high alert. Jin Park stood with his battalion in the ruins of what had once been a major city. The Scarine would send drop ships once the orbital battle was decided. His orders were simple: make them regret landing. Remember, he told his soldiers, they think they know how. We'll defend, we'll show them something new. Honi checked her medical supplies one last time. She had treated hundreds of wounded over the past months. She would treat hundreds more before this day ended, but she was ready. Young Su walked among the defensive positions, encouraging young soldiers, sharing wisdom from decades of warfare. The fancy implants don't matter, he told them. What matters is here. He tapped his chest. Your courage, your creativity, your refusal to quit. That's what humans bring to battle. That's what they can't calculate. In orbit, the space battle raged on. The Scarine fleet outnumbered the human vessels 20 to 1. But they could not coordinate effectively. Every time they tried to execute a tactical maneuver, the delays and duplicated data caused ships to move out of sync. Bowman saw an opening and struck. Her vastly outnumbered fleet punched through the Scarine formation, targeting their command vessels. The Scarine tried to close ranks, but different ships received different orders at different times. The perfect coordination that was their greatest strength had become their fatal weakness. Veller made a decision he never thought he would make: all ships disconnect from the tactical network, revert to independent operation. Order shocked every scaring officer. Fight as individuals without thwart consciousness. It was unthinkable. They had not trained for independent operations in centuries. Their entire civilization was built on connected minds thinking as one, but Veller saw no choice. The virus was destroying their coordination. Better to fight as individuals than as a confused mob. The Scaran fleet disconnected from their tactical network. Suddenly 6,000 ships were operating independently without the benefit of shared consciousness. Captains who had never made a decision without consulting the network found themselves alone with their thoughts. They froze. Years of depending on implants had atrophied their ability to think creatively, to make intuitive decisions, to trust their own judgment. They needed the network to tell them what to do, and without it they were lost. The human fleet already operating as individuals pressed their advantage. Every human captain made independent decisions, attacked different targets, used different tactics. The Scaran could not predict what any individual human would do, because even the humans themselves did not know until they did it. Ren Choi had predicted this moment. Without their implants to guide them, the Scaran would experience severe psychological distress, and she was right. Across the enemy fleet, Scaran commanders panicked. Some retreated, some attacked recklessly, some simply shut down, unable to function without their worked guidance. The perfect armada fell apart. On his flagship, Veller watched the battle turn against him. He had brought 6,000 ships to conquer one world. He was losing, not because the humans had better technology, not because they had superior numbers, but because they could think for themselves, adapt without algorithms, and embrace chaos instead of fearing it. A communication came through. From Earth's surface, Quand appeared on the screen, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. Commander Veller Day said calmly, "I am authorized to offer terms for your withdrawal." Withdrawal. Veller's pride flared. "We still outnumber you. Our ships are more powerful. Our weapons are useless when your soldiers cannot think for themselves." Day interrupted, "Your implants made you strong but dependent. You forgot how to be creative, how to adapt, how to make decisions without perfect information. You've forgotten how to be individuals." Veller said nothing. He knew Day was right. "Withdraw now," Day continued, "and we will allow your fleet to leave intact. Continue fighting, and we will exploit every weakness your dependence on technology has created." Your choice. For the first time in his life, Veller made a decision without consulting his implants, without processing optimal solutions, without the benefit offered consciousness. He made a choice based on intuition, on gut feeling, on the simple recognition that he was beaten. All ships he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat, retreat, return to Scaran space. The armada that had arrived with such confidence began its withdrawal. Ships that had moved in perfect formation now straggled back in loose groups, their coordination broken, their superiority shattered. On Earth, cheers erupted in the command center. Soldiers on the ground embraced each other. The orbital fleet began recovery operations for damaged ships and wounded crew. One did not cheer. He watched the Scaran Fleet retreat and felt only tired. Satisfaction, they had won, but the cost had been high. Dozens of colonies damaged or destroyed, thousands of casualties.